in the Nissan Micra in the Team Valley Trading Estate in Gateshead because I had to buy a suction cup because I left my old one inside a Lamborghini, as you do. Right, first things first, this car looks great. Here's the last one. And the one before that. So you see, even if you're uninspired by the looks of the new Micra, compared to its predecessors, you have to agree that it's hot. The other thing about the last couple of Micras is that they've, well, sucked. 2-star reviews we gave them, but it was the last Micra that was really problematic for Nissan. Long story short, the Macams stopped macking them, the quality and the desirability tanked, and European sales dropped by 2/3. So here we are. As it happens, this car's still not made in Sunderland, but production has moved away from various factories in Asia and South America and moved to a Renault plant near Paris. And as we all know, Renault knows how to knock together a small hatchback. The result is, of course, that this is much, much better. There's plenty of space in here front and back, so much so that it almost feels like a compact MPV. And there's a decent amount of boot area too, including a wheel-shaped hidey hole underneath the floor if you have an option to spare. And for a car of this price, you can't really fault the quality. Priced well it is too. Why did I say that like Yoda? This is a 12 grand car and it's camped very firmly in the small hatchback crew. It is, in short, a reasonably priced runabout. Yep, nothing extraordinary about the price of this car, but frankly, nothing extraordinary about being in here either. There's a definite disparity between the outside of this car and the inside. A disparity that tends to apply to most Nissans as it happens. Because while it's all sharp on the outside, inside it's pretty much your classic Japanese blandorama. It's mostly dark textured plastic of the type you'll find in most Nissans. And it's not even really lifted by this stretch of coloured stuff you can get for the dashboard. In this case, orange. It's a 400 quid option. In fact, all the orange really accomplishes in here is to emphasise sort of how dark and bland the rest of the cabin actually is. It's a bit of an uncomfortable contrast, sort of like sprinkling jelly beans over a rice cake. That said, like most Nissan cabins, it all does feel very well put together and it works well too. So for example, if your Micra's got a touchscreen, you'll enjoy the way the software's being programmed. So things like if you're following the sat-nav screen, there's still a little section of buttons so you can change the radio while you're doing that rather than having to go through menus. If your Micra has a touchscreen, so let's find out how you do that. Nissan has given the Micra its usual baffling name convention, with base cars called Vizia, and so light on specification that Nissan actually lists its 2-speaker stereo as a main feature. It's also on steel wheels and it doesn't have cold air, although you do get that if you spend a bit more on Vizia Plus, as well as a start-stop system to improve the economy. Centre's where you have to go to get the screen, as well as Apple CarPlay and cruise control. And then top of the range cars feature big alloys, some leather in the cabin, keyless engine start, a rear view camera, and a decent Bose stereo that includes speakers in the headrests. What, I missed one out? Did I? Oh, that's okay. We'll just rewind when I cross a end connector. Making moves there on the dance floor. So yeah, end connector is probably your best blend of price and kit, because although it doesn't have the fancy stereo in the camera, it does have alloy wheels, tinted windows and aircon, and you're holding onto a pipe of leather, so it does feel well equipped. But there's a couple of things to note in here, like how even in this top of the range car, there's no center console, which means you don't get an armrest and you don't get a storage box in there either. You just get lots of cup holders. Albeit the door pockets are quite big, you can get a bottle in here, and the glove box is quite big too. I like this little pad here for your phone as well because it's backlit. That's a nice touch. But there's this weird rotational rear window repositioning device that really confused my children. Having one of these in any car, let alone a top of the range one, is pure cost cutting. Same with these plastic rear door handles, which is a part that Nissan never has to paint. Thankfully, one area where there's evidently been no cost cutting is safety. The Micra comes with an impressive array of standard safety equipment, some of which is especially high tech for a car of this size. Like intelligent lane intervention, which will use the brakes individually to nudge you back into lane if it detects that you've drifted out slightly, and intelligent trace control, which helps the car steer more sharply by just nipping on the inside brakes as you're turning. That makes the car feel sharper. That's not a new system, a lot of hatchbacks already have that, especially quicker ones, but it's nice to have it in a car like this. Sure enough, the Micra ends up with a 5-star safety rating from the good people at Euro NCAP. Engines then, there are only 3, but they're all good, aside from the base one being about as quick as grandma on a typewriter. The middling one is probably the one to go for if yours is going to be the classic around town small hatchback experience. But look at the diesel, 88 miles per gallon average. Flip me! It does cost around 1,400 quid more than the turbo petrol though, so even though it's mathematically almost impossible to recommend at the sort of mileage you do, there is value in getting a good 60 miles per gallon plus in real life and rarely having to go to the petrol station for diesel. As small diesels go, it's pretty refined too, as you can probably not hear, and because it's got more torque than both of the petrols, it feels nippy around town, which is I think a word that you're supposed to use with a small car. The whole driving experience is pretty much the same as the cabin as it goes. Fairly ordinary, nothing to complain about, nothing to get too excited about either. So it rides quite well, it occasionally smacks into potholes every now and again, but it's generally pretty level. What I would say is if you've got the diesel, the gearing's really long, so if you're going along in 4th at 30, which is what the gear change indicator is telling you to do, it does feel a little bit like it wants to stall. The steering's a little bit stiffer than you might want it to be around town, but that means it actually feels quite good when you're going a bit quicker and you're turning. Actually, it has another brake-based drive enhancing system called Intelligent Ride Control. Now you hear something like that and usually you assume it means like adaptive dampers, but it's not that clever. What it does is if you're going up a speed humps or something, it detects that and it applies the brakes really slightly just to keep the body more level. Beyond all that, it's just generally a very nicely balanced car anyway though. Like even though it feels tall in here like a small MPV, it doesn't actually roll that much. And there's surprisingly little wind noise for a small car, although what that does do sometimes is emphasize the tyre noise when you're on certain road surfaces. But generally between that and, like I said, the quiet diesel engine, this is a pretty refined small car. So there you have it. The Micra is very clever, it's very reasonably priced, it's no longer ugly, and it no longer sucks. You can think about buying one again. Yay! Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you like the video and leave a pithy comment underneath to tell us how good or bad we are. And if you'd like a translation from Geordie, we'll get Grandma to type one and post it to you. Just leave your address in the comments. Bye!